Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Blade Job. I don't know what episode this is because I don't have Scott here. I don't have John here. It's episode 5. Episode 5? Episode 17. 75. 75. I'm being told by my producer that it is episode 75 of the Blade Job. My name is Ryan. Follow me on Twitter at The Blade Job Show. Visit us on all of your social media platforms. Find us on all of your podcasting platforms. Go to YouTube, subscribe. Sometimes I do video. It's not often. But last week and the week before, we attempted to raise awareness for a very serious case of elk-related violence in a hope that it would raise our ratings, and it did not. So, in a last-ditch effort, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest as we welcome podcasting guru. This man seems to have a million podcasts at this point. Mags himself, Darren Kirkby, welcome to the show. Finally.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Why We Watch. The Blade Job Show. Yeah, it's about bloody time I was on this show. I've been the only listener for a long, long time, and people like Matt Willis, fly by night, Johnny come latelys, Matt Willis gets on the show before me. I was disgusted and horrified.
The weird thing about Matt, follow him on Twitter at the Matt Attack UK, is that I wouldn't even send, I would just type, hey, I need a co-host, and before I could hit send, I would magically get a message from Matt going, hey, you need a co-host today? I don't know how he did it, because every time I needed someone to fill in, we're talking seconds, he was already going, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I think it's just because he spends a lot of time on Twitter, though I have noticed young man has been on Twitter less and less since he's fallen in love.
Well, this is it. Plus, he's also now got Matt Attack Productions. He's quite big league in everyone nowadays. I have his phone number, and getting hold of him is like pulling teeth sometimes. He's quite the big league now, so you may hear less and less of him.
To make it even worse, I don't know, it's probably just me because this is how things go, but I have not been followed by Matt Attack Productions on Twitter, and I refuse to follow it until I get my comeuppance, as it were. I just think that, I'm a veteran at this point, you know? I may not be Stone Cold Steve Austin, but damn sure I'm Al Snow. You know, I've been doing this for a while, and I may be part of the job squad, but I enjoy what I do. As we were talking about off the air, I'm not WWE, I'm not even AEW, I'm ECW in their infancy. I'm in a bingo hall somewhere, and I couldn't have it any other way unless people want to give me money. I will sell out in a heartbeat. Just so you all know, Blue Chew, Haribo, whoever wants to give me money, go for it.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, the higher the monkey climbs the tree, the more you see its nuts. And I think that's what's happened with Matt. He's got this big head about him now. He's a somebody, and he's left us poor little podcasters down scratching in the dirt. But no, I love Matt. He's amazing. Go and follow him. He's absolutely brilliant.
He is. And if you don't, out there in Radio Land... Is it still Radio Land? I guess there's still radio waves involved somewhere. You go out and check out Matt Attack. Check out the gaming pod with Matt and Alex. God, I'm sure he has 6 other... Good Cop, Bad Cop. The guy works hard. I'll give him credit for it.
He's got the brothers one. What are you talking about? Willis, Interlaw, Gossip. He's got a football one coming up, I think, called Good Cop, Bad Cop, as in like the cop from the Liverpool football ground. Yeah, the guy's a podcasting machine is what everybody who podcasts should aspire to do, I suppose.
Oh, excuse me. Now, I'm assuming that comes with the light schedule that comes with being a professional cook. It doesn't sound like he has to, work at all.
Definitely not. I've seen clips of his videos where he's been editing whilst in the kitchen. He's got his Mac set up to edit. So yeah, his job is hardly the most taxing, I think.
Yeah, well, not. I don't even have cell phone reception at work. So, I mean, if I had cell phone reception, I think I would be a lot more productive because I would set up my system at work. But at the same time, I say that, and I would probably just play games and look at porn. But that's neither here nor there. But, okay, getting down to business. A lot of things are happening right now. I have feelings, I have emotions, and they're not necessarily the emotions that other people are feeling, but I don't really care about that. So, last night, you watched it, I watched it, the world watched it, maybe. AEW held their second show, Fyter Fest, at CEO's Fyter Fest, because, creative. I see what they were doing. They were playing off the name of, using the name of Fyter Fest so they could make the Fire Festival joke over and over and over again. And I thought they did it really well because, I don't know about you, but Kenny Omega should be an actor because his facial expressions are classic. Every time he does sad Kenny Omega, I feel him. I feel his pain. Now you watched it. Did you watch it live?
I did. I was kind of sad watching it. Obviously, I have a podcast that I'm slating, Matt, and I've got a podcast about UFC. So that was on at the same time. So I had Fight Fest on the laptop and UFC on the TV. So I was watching both. I know I know what happened in both. So yeah, I did watch it. I enjoyed it. Can't say it wasn't a particularly bad show. It wasn't the best show, but it was a very enjoyable show. We over in the civilized world, we actually had to pay for it. £9, I think it was, which is about say $13.
Hold on. Did you not also have to pay? How much did you pay for Double or Nothing?
That was £15, I think. Yeah.
So what does that come out to?
About $21.
Okay, so we paid $50, so we've still paid more money for AEW pay-per-views than you. So
yeah, I weren't complaining. I just felt that if the American fans get it for free, so should everybody else.
I think that's the issue with Fight as a partner in general is Fight overcharges for everything, and they, the nice thing is, so Bleacher Report Live, which is where we watched it on here in the States, is owned by Warner Media, and Warner Media owns TNT, where AEW will be airing. So there's a lot. There's an internal partnership there, as opposed to Fight, who I mean, I don't like Fight TV in general, just because I think that, like, for example, for Beyond Wrestling's Uncharted Territory, it's $10 a month for a independent wrestling TV subscription, or you can buy each individual episode on Fight for $10, which seems ass backwards to me. I mean, I feel like if it's a $10 subscription to the streaming service, I know it's two different companies, but I feel like why is Fight charging $10? Why aren't they charging $5?
Yeah, exactly.
It just doesn't make sense. It's it's under the same impression of, if you have an active internet connection and a viable internet connection and you're paying for WWE pay-per-views as opposed to buying the network, you're an idiot. You may think that you're sticking it to the man or something like that, but you're just dumb.
I think over here in Britain, when the TV deal kicks in with RTV in I think I want to say October, I think the Fight TV deal will go by the wayside, because RTV box office, if you've got RTV, which you'll be watching the show on, you've got RTV box office. It's literally just a click on your remote. So that'll be probably the go-to place for AEW pay-per-views from now on. It's just we have to grin and bear it with Fight TV for the next few events. That's all.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw a lot of, we see you're big in the Twitter community. You know how this works. One one person says one thing and everyone latches onto it because it's easier to just recycle and reuse information than it is to actually have, I don't know, a normal, coherent thought of your own. And, I'm seeing, so we'll start with, before we kind of talk about the event, I want to start with an individual who I'm not going to name because I actually do normally have good interactions with them and their website. But there was an individual who pointed out that AEW at Fyter Fest had a couple sections tarped off. And they are using this to argue with the WWE fan base who likes to ignore the fact that WWE has sections tarped off at events. And I think that this is just unnecessary infighting. There was no reason. We shouldn't be attacking WWE for poor attendance numbers. We shouldn't be attacking AEW for poor attendance numbers, because at the end of the day, this is not good for business. It's not good for wrestling. So I don't know why we're starting this fight over and over and over and over again.
It's the bad thing about social media is exactly that, what you've said there. It makes people draw battle lines. Now, obviously, the elite have fed into that with the throne breaker stuff and the little pot shots at WWE. WWE have fired back, but it almost goads the fans into making them have to choose. And I am quite strong-willed. I'm not going to choose either side. I like both WWE products and I like AEW products, so I'm going to enjoy both. If people want to limit what they can watch because of some stupid fallacy of they have to support one or the other, then that's up to them. The talk that I saw a lot more on Twitter was that AEW had sold out another show whilst WWE were floundering. I wasn't actually aware of the fact that there was areas tarped off until actually halfway through the show.
So first and foremost, I want to point this out because some people don't seem to understand this. Sections around where they have the cameras set up, a lot of times, even in a sold-out show, are blocked off because they don't want people right next to all of their expensive television equipment. That's just kind of how it is. Like, I remember even WWF pay-per-views back in the heyday when it was the biggest thing that ever happened would have the sections on either side of the hard cam completely blocked off. Like, no one could sit there. Yeah. And it was it wasn't a question of we didn't sell enough tickets. It was a question of this is really expensive equipment and we don't want people sitting next to it who can grab things and grab at wires and, mess around with our shit. And, obviously it's much worse nowadays. I mean, live attendance is low on many things, from sports to concerts to everything. I remember, not many years ago trying to go to certain concerts of groups that I like at a venue near us that it's an amphitheater, but it also has a lawn section in the back of it, which is just general admission, and it would sell out every show. Now it doesn't. Now you can still get tickets the day of, and I think that's more like on our end, at least over here, it's just part of the economy. It's stuff's expensive. Things keep getting more expensive, and people are just picking and choosing what they do, which, you know what? I love live wrestling. I really do. But sometimes I just want to sit on the couch and watch it because you get to hear the commentary. You get to see the backstage stuff. You get to see a lot more than you do live. And, AEW and WWE as well, they're not cheap. They're not cheap to go to. I mean, if you want good seats for a WWE show, you're paying $60 to $100 per ticket plus fees and all that nonsense. And AEW is no different. They the fans, quote unquote, may like to tell you that AEW is this super fan friendly company. They're still a company, and they're still charging their tickets accordingly.
Absolutely. The thing with AEW is and I've said it before, they're the new hot thing, and a lot of the apologists will basically give AEW free reign over something that they will absolutely tear strips off WWE for, and it's just the way of the world. And I would suggest that in 2 years that maybe AEW will be judged upon what it's actually producing rather than being like given this almost free pass on doing things like the WWE, but not getting judged in the same way as WWE.
And that's a thing. So I want to say I want to say it was our good buddy Dave Cole who said it on Twitter earlier last night that watching AEW actually shows you how good WWE is at what they do. When it comes to like, so, you know, I've seen a lot of people crapping all over JR saying he needs to retire. The guy hasn't really done it full time in what, 10 years? You know, he's got to get back into the swing of things. He's also old. You know, I think he's in his 70s at this point. Like, he's not as quick as he used to be. Yeah, and yeah, they had Golden Boy was kind of weak on commentary. Their saving grace on commentary was Excalibur. Someone who's doing it full time right now. Like, he's been doing it full time this entire time, and he's just transitioning from one company to another. But that it really shows you, even like the camera cuts. And, you know, there were a couple of missed spots last night because the cameras were out of position. You saw the camera. I saw 5 cameramen fall down because they tripped over things. You know, like, they are going through growing pains, but they're also like, this is an upstart business. They may be backed by a billionaire, but most of these people are learning as they go. You know, these pay-per-views are essentially like training for television when they have to do this weekly. And like big thing that I noticed that was, it felt weird, was that whenever they did the lights out spots where lights go out, lights come back on, someone appears, the lights were out for a long time.
Yeah.
Like WWE, lights go out, lights come up 2 seconds later and Undertaker's in the ring. You know, like, it's just something that they've done so many times. And, you know, repetition just makes you better and better and better. And AEW doesn't have any repetition because most of these performers have never performed on this kind of stage. You know, they've been delegated to the bingo halls, to the Elk Lodges, and they haven't run at a production where it's live TV and it's go, 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 you know. And I'm really happy that AEW has implemented the classic time limit to matches, because it will make shows flow better even if someone goes over, they have a finite amount of time where they have to finish this match.
Yeah,
you know,
totally agree.
It's something that I've always enjoyed. The time, like, a lot of people were complaining about Cody and Darby Allin going to a time limit draw. I haven't seen a time limit draw in forever. I was excited because it's such a good storytelling technique. Like, you know, this man won't go down. This man won't end. Like, this match just won't end. Cody can't win. And he doesn't, because the resiliency of Darby Allin, and I thought that was just good storytelling. And people are complaining about that, and it's like, do you not watch pro wrestling? Like, and if you do, your own, like, and I know this is gonna sound something you hate is gonna sound gatekeepery, but you clearly have never watched any of the classics, because this is the way things used to be. This is just the way, you know. People were complaining at Ring of Honor, Best in the World, because who's it, Gresham and someone else had a Pure Rules match, and they weren't allowed to, like, go up to the top rope or, like, go off the ropes, because that's the way it used to be. Yep. You know, you go back in the day, and the ropes were there to keep you in. They weren't there for flippy shit. They weren't there for Irish whips. You know, like, that's just the way it was. And it was neat that they did something because it was fairly unique to have a pure rules match in this day and age. But it showcased how talented like Jonathan Gresham is in his technical and submission styles. And I thought it was, I've only seen bits and pieces of it, but I thought it was fine from what I saw. But people are complaining because there wasn't, what they expected.
But that's Twitter for you. That's social media for you. It's easy to complain than it is to praise a product. I mean, going back to the Cody versus Darby match, that was the best finish that they could have come up with, because you want to keep the head of your brand in Cody strong, but you also don't want to stifle the new upcoming talent in Darby Allin, and especially a company who have said time and time again that wins and losses are going to be of more importance than they are in WWE. So a time limit draw keeps absolutely both of them strong, and it was the best kind of finish. I mean, Darby Allin his wrestling style covered up for a lot of Cody's lacking in the ring, and I thought that was it was up there with the best matches on the card, and I felt the finish was absolutely perfect.
See, I had this thought last night while I was watching it, and I didn't think I'd find someone who agreed with me, and you just agreed with me inadvertently. Is that match was the weak point of the night was Cody. It was not that match, but it was Cody. I'm not a huge Cody Rhodes fan. I like Cody. I appreciate Cody. I think his match with Dustin at Double or Nothing was match of the night. I mean, that match was brilliant. It told such a good story. I'm just not a huge Cody Rhodes fan. I don't think he's as good as people say he is. And I don't think the thing that Cody Rhodes has is he has the Rhodes personality. He has the Rhodes charisma.
Yeah.
And that makes him a top draw. So right after Cody left WWE, I saw him at an XWA show in Warwick, Rhode Island. Literally it was a school gym, and it was a fucking sweat lodge. It was about 95 degrees, and it was miserable. And the main event was Cody Rhodes versus Tommaso Ciampa, and it was Ciampa's final match on the Indies before he went to NXT full time. He'd already been in NXT with Johnny doing DIY, but he wasn't full time yet. And this was like his last indie date. And Cody goes over, which I didn't agree with, letting the hometown boy take the loss in his final match. I'm not a, give them their farewell, like it's all smoke and mirrors anyways. And yes, that is a Cody Rhodes pun. But then so Cody cut a promo about how Ciampa is one of the best, blah 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 blah, and then he gives Ciampa the mic and lets him do his promo, and they play his theme song, Psycho Killer Qu'est-ce que c'est, for the next like 20 minutes while the entire roster comes out. And off topic, Tommaso Ciampa, as great of a heel as he is, he took time after that match to shake every single person's hand in that entire arena. Like he genuinely shook everyone's hand and said thank you to every person who was there. It was a really cool moment. I'm actually really happy to have been a part of it because it was just really cool. But going back to Cody, even in that match, didn't see it. Like he has that charisma, he has that personality to him. His in-ring is good. It's not great, and that's why I think that him transitioning over to, I don't want to call him part-time, but I don't want to see him to be the focus of AEW. He should spend more of his time being this pseudo-authority figure for AEW. Because he's good on the mic. He's great on promos. I mean, look at all of the build-up videos to Double or Nothing. I mean, they were some of the best work I've ever seen. But
yep.
he was the weak point of the night for me. You know, I don't know. Like, Darby's an insane person. Like,
Definitely. I think for me with Cody he is the typical WWE star. Now I know obviously he's left WWE, but he works better where the match is structured and he's got a set like routine to follow. Once we saw him leave WWE, obviously he went to Ring of Honor and New Japan. When he was left to his own devices of coming up with the matches, the match quality wasn't as good unless he was in the ring with someone who could carry him to a good match. The likes of Kenny Omega, for instance. So if you look through the matches that he's had since leaving WWE, he's not really reached like high rankings, especially if we go off Uncle Shagger Dave's score. But then you get the match with his brother, where Dustin carried him to an amazing match. And it's what is it there? Both of them's first ever 5-star match, and then the likes of Last Night, where Darby Allin really got a good match out of Cody Rhodes. Like, I totally agree with you. I don't think he's bad in the ring. I just don't think he has got the ability to lead a match. But his promos absolutely on point. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, obviously, you know, anyone who throughout the history of his career has ever said that Dustin Runnels is not one of the best performers to ever step foot in that ring has clearly never watched him work, because he is he's an actual ring general. Like, he knows that ring, and I've seen him wrestle a multitude of people who are basically jobbers and turn them into stars. You know, it's just what he does, and I agree. And you mentioned having a structured match is something that Cody's more comfortable with. Darby Allin doesn't wrestle structured matches.
Definitely not.
You know, he's very twitchy. He's very quick. He's all over the place, and it just it was two very differing styles, and unfortunately, I thought that Cody maybe had trouble keeping up with him. And I also didn't really understand why he wasn't being DQ'd at the end. I mean, I like the concept of the ref being lenient with the rules, but the commentators didn't mention it. You know, she was just like, hey, stop doing that. No, you're not supposed to do that. Like, she didn't get in his face. Like, I'm thinking, like, you know, back in the day, Earl Hebner, who would actually, like, push Triple H, you know, if he was getting too out of hand, and be like, no, this is my fucking ring. You stop it. You stop it now. You know, and I mean, you know, they've got a good setup of referees, because she started the pinfall count at the perfect time, where her hand was like an inch away from the mat when the bell rang. Like, yep. She did that time limit draw perfectly. Like, that timing was brilliant. But just like, referees are supposed to have, WWE does it, you know, AEW does it, they all do it, where referees are the final say. Referees are in control of the entire match. And I feel like too often they make the referees look like cowards, or, you know, just completely out, you know, they have zero control of what's going on. Because at the end of the day, even if it's not a no DQ match, if the ref doesn't want to disqualify someone, the ref doesn't have to disqualify someone. Period. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if they broke the rules or not. It doesn't, you know, it's why people all freaked out about Lacey Evans at Stomping Grounds. Oh, why didn't she disqualify? She has to. He broke the rules. No, she doesn't. She's the referee. She doesn't have to do shit. Like, that's the whole point of a special guest referee. Because, you know, Austin used to do the same thing. Shane did the same thing where they go to count the 3 count and then they stop right at the end and go, "Oops, sorry."
Yeah.
You know, Shane actually did the exact what she did at Stomping Grounds, where her shoulder hurt too much to count the 3 count. Shane did that exact same thing. Like, this is nothing new. People just don't want to like Lacey Evans.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like Lacey Evans, but that's because I don't think she's a good wrestler. You know, I think she's acceptable. I don't think she should be in the position she's in. But that's just me. But back to AEW.
I agree with you. I think the ref being like lenient in stuff like that, it shows that they were planning a spot rather than it being an organic like transition in the match. For the ref to be letting stuff like that go, it's obviously it was already planned ahead of time, which kind of can take you out of the match a little bit, I suppose.
Well, it's like, I mean, how many times, you know, I remember this is something that's always stuck with me, and I think WWE has lost sight of this, and I'm hoping AEW doesn't lose sight of this. But how many times during the late 90s, early 2000s, where, you know, we had a match between, I don't know, Triple H and Stone Cold for the WWF Championship, and they're hitting each other with chairs, and they're putting each other through the announce table, and the commentators make sure to say the referee is being lenient because this is an important match. This match is for the WWF Championship, and they don't want a disqualification. It's not a no DQ match, but it's the ref's, you know, the ref's decision whether or not this match continues. You know,
absolutely.
And that's storytelling. This is important. Make the match feel important. That's the commentator's job, to make this match feel important. That's the referee's job. That's the performer's job. The whole point is, whether you're the opening contest or the main event, make your match seem important. Because if your match seems important, you're going to get pushed to the moon because you are now important.
And that's where Jim Ross, being the senior commentator, should have like taken that charge, but he didn't. I mean, I personally think it was his best performance since being part of AEW, and even when he was part of Axis with New Japan, but he was still the weak link on the commentary team for me.
He's so my issue with their commentary team is, I think Golden Boy was supposed to be the color commentator. But what ended up happening is they had 3 play-by-play.
Yeah.
And it really didn't, where you, like, love or hate, it doesn't even have to be a heel commentator. Color commentary is really, really important. To have that extra set of eyes. It's honestly, I don't really care for him, but Corey Graves does a great job at color commentary.
Yeah.
Because he brings extra things to the match. I don't like it because Vince, let's just, you know, call it what it is like, argue with Renee Moore. Just yell at her. Tell her she's a bitch. You know, it's like, no. Like, the whole feud between Renee and... Because Renee's getting really good. She's finally picking it up. She's finally getting it. But every time she has momentum, Corey Graves shoots her down.
Yeah.
And it's stupid. I don't. Do you watch NXT?
I do.
So, I'm not a fan of Beth Phoenix yet. I don't think she's ready. She can't keep up with Morrow, for one thing.
Who can, though?
Well, that's the thing. Nigel can.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
You know, Nigel keeps up with... But, like, I noticed on the most recent episode of NXT that Beth Phoenix was just repeating what everyone else said. Yeah. She wasn't actually saying anything of anything Mary. And that's nothing against Beth Phoenix. I think she did a great job during Evolution. I thought... was it Evolution?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought she did a great job, but she also had... I think... Because she had Michael Cole. And love him or hate him, he does know what his job entails, and he knows how to do it right.
He does.
You know? I mean, I will never... I don't have to like Michael Cole, but I will never say that he's bad at his job, because whenever someone says Michael Cole sucks, I direct you to Jerry Lawler's Heart Attack and how Michael Cole was able to keep that show going, even though literally someone who is his friend is dead backstage.
Yeah.
And he kept his shit together And I will never not respect him after that. Especially since he transitioned away from heel Michael Cole, which was a terrible character. Like, when he just went play-by-play, he still doesn't know what wrestling moves are, but that's not his fault. It's because Vince wants to water down commentary so people understand it.
Yeah, well,
You know?
Vince's big thing is never mention the names of moves anyway. It's you've got to bring up the storyline or stuff like that. So he hasn't had to learn the moves.
At Stomping Grounds, Cole, I noticed that Cole called a step up enziguri, and I was like, whoa, an actual wrestling move. Interesting. And then 2 matches later, someone also did a step up enziguri, and he called it a jumping sidekick. And you know it's because Vince was going, don't use big words. They're stupid. They don't get it. They're fucking morons. You know, it's just like, and I understand that that's just the way things are. Now, I'm hoping with the news that Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff are going to be running Raw and SmackDown, that the man in Gorilla with the headset is not going to be Vince anymore. Or at least it's going to be Vince and Paul Heyman and Vince and Eric Bischoff.
Yeah,
Because I'm assuming executive director definitely sounds like someone who's in gorilla position all night.
well, with the pull that Paul Heyman has backstage, and the fact that Eric Bischoff was out of the company, had nothing to do with him at all. They surely have only agreed to come in if they get at least a modicum of control.
Yeah.
If they're going to have their name attached to the running of SmackDown and attached to the running of Raw, they've got to have at least some sort of like power. So we'll see in the next few months, because we've been told that it's going to be quite a slow transition, and also that they're not necessarily going to be on screen talent. So we'll just see. Is it a shot across the bow to AEW? Is it a panic move by Vince McMahon? Is it Vince McMahon preparing himself for life with the XFL? Well, only time's going to tell, really. But personally, I think it's a good move. The 2 companies that really give Vince a run for his money were headed by Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman. I know that there's a lot of talk on Twitter. They both failed, but everybody fails against WWE. And
the thing is, I don't even think that they failed, because like a lot of people say, like, you know, Eric Bischoff. So when WCW folded, Bischoff, he had just come back to the company in like the tail end, trying to fix the mess that Vince Russo created.
Yep.
And so the failure of WCW was on Vince Russo, in my opinion. Now, and then Bischoff wanted to buy WCW, and he wanted to not rebrand it, but reboot it in his own image, which I think would have been great. It was Ted Turner's decision to sell because he got bored with his toy, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, now Paul Heyman never failed as a wrestling promoter. He failed as a businessman.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
It was finances that caused the demise of ECW. It was not understanding, especially because he was offering money to wrestlers that he didn't have because he assumed he could make it. That was his failure. His wrestling promoting, I mean, you look back when he was head of creative of SmackDown in the 2000s, it was the best SmackDown has ever been. Period. Because Paul Heyman understands pro wrestling. He understands character development. He understands match booking. He understands match pacing. As someone who doesn't wrestle, he knows more about what happens in between those ropes than most of the wrestlers do. And that's something really, really special about Paul Heyman. I'm not saying Paul Heyman's a good person, because he definitely did some shitty things to a lot of people. But god damn it, does he know how to run a wrestling organization.
Absolutely. And and you basically hit the nail on the head with these two guys. As much as they are painted as bad figures in the wrestling business, they were so influential in the time when wrestling was at its hottest, and we're now back into almost the same cycle where wrestling is hot again. You couldn't have two better people in a position of power in the biggest wrestling company in the world, and the fact that they're being overseen by the best sports entertainment businessman you could ever think of is only going to be good for WWE. They can still have that influence on the show and the characters, but Vince will have overall say over the business, which means it's the best of both worlds for WWE, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really is because like you were saying, they wouldn't have signed on if they didn't have, some sort of control over what they were doing. Both of these men have worked for Vince McMahon before. They both know how, what's the word? Insane Vince McMahon is. They both know his idiosyncrasies. They both know his attitude. They both have been around him for a long time. And they know, like, a lot of people seem to like, oh, blah, blah, blah signed with WWE. It's like, that contract comes through and they're just, all they see is WWE is offering me a contract. That's all they see. They don't think about, oh, but what about working for Vince? Oh, what about backstage? Oh, what about travel? Oh, what? They just see, holy shit, WWE just offered me a contract. Yep. And for people to, and not to mention, if you ever talk down to a performer for signing with WWE, like, that's the dream for most of these people started wrestling so they could work for WWE.
Exactly.
That's the dream. And yeah, there is a 98% chance that they will never get that WrestleMania main event. They will never get that moment in the spotlight. But if you don't try, there's a 0% chance you ever do any of that.
Correct.
It's just the way it is. Why not take that 10% chance or that 2% chance to have that moment? You think that Tyler Black and Jon Moxley signed on and, said, oh, well, we're never going to make it, so it doesn't really matter. No, they signed on saying, I'm going to be the goddamn main event. And they did it. They both did it. They both were champion. They both, Rollins is champion. He's in a bit of a weak storyline right now, but he's also one of the best that they have right now. And I'm hearing that in Japan, him and Nakamura had a WrestleMania main event worthy match.
Well, I've heard the same, but apparently, according to Twitter, if you don't see it, it's not happened. They got a lot of grief for that.
Well, yeah, because, WWE owes it to us to record everything at every moment of every second and to just feed it directly into our cerebellum through just a Matrix-style jack-in process that we pay $9.99 a month for. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. You know what? And this is the thing. And it's actually going back to AEW. I cannot wait for the AEW hype train to slow down. Because right now, the people I feel the most bad for are all of the Chicago natives who are really excited that AEW is coming back to Chicago, who aren't going to get tickets because the out-of-towners grabbed them first. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it's not WrestleMania, folks. Like, I understand WrestleMania, you got an arena with 100,000 seats in it. You can afford to have people come from all over the world. But, picture like, oh, hey, SmackDown's going to be in, whatever town. I'm going to go. Oh, I can't because the people from 3 states over bought all the tickets. Like, the whole point of the touring brand is it comes to your town, you say, ooh, cool, I'm going to go see this show. And that's not to say that you don't have the right to travel if you want to see something, but, I feel bad. I feel bad for those people who can't go to these AEW shows because, and not to mention how many of those 160,000 people that were sitting in the virtual queue for All Out were just fucking scalpers. You know, like
I've heard totally differing figures about that as well. One end I've heard that it was more like 40 to almost 200,000 people. But then I've also heard that people had multiple computers and multiple phones doing the same thing. So even if you cut the amount down by three, I don't think the demand is as high as people are making out.
No, and that's the other thing. You know, talking about scalpers, the scalpers are really only there because the hype is there, and they know they can make a quick buck off it. Once this hype dies down and becomes just kind of a part of everyday life, then those ticket prices are going to go down. I think even what AEW is offering for ticket prices is going to go down. But right now they know they're hot, and they know they can sell the tickets at whatever. Like, our tickets are going to be affordable for the average fan. The cheapest ticket was like $40. Like, that's, I can get I think nosebleed seats were $30. So you can get nosebleed seats for a fucking SmackDown or a house show or even a Raw for like $10-15.
Yeah.
And that's not because WWE's struggling. That's how it's always been. You can get tickets to WrestleMania for $20 if you don't mind sitting at the top of the stadium. Like, you know, I'm sorry, but don't claim that you are pricing competitively if you're not. That's the only thing. And I think the issue, once again, it comes right back to social media, is you've got Cody, Kenny, Matt and Nick, and Brandy, who are all social media hounds. They use social. They were indie wrestlers up until recently. They use social media to brand themselves. They use social media to promote themselves, and they don't think before they tweet. And like Kenny's fucking Blood Money tweet the other day. Now, is Kenny wrong? Technically not. I mean, yes, you know, what WWE is doing with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a little fucking shady.
Yeah.
But so Kenny didn't necessarily attack WWE with that tweet. Because if you want to place blame on who's running a show on July 13th, you're attacking Evolve. You're attacking an independent organization who had this show planned for months before WWE said, "Hey, do you want to put it on the network?"
But the thing is, it didn't. If you actually look at what Kenny said, that it was WWE trying to take money away from, or WWE/Evolve were trying to take money away from the charity, but it didn't remotely affect the charity because the charity was getting the money from the ticket sales, and the ticket sales have already happened.
Wait, you mean that the free fucking pay-per-view?
Exactly.
My free is not going to fucking, what is it, gun violence victims?
Exactly.
My free 50, my free 99 is not going to these victims? How dare they, those sons of bitches?
So if everybody who was going to watch Fight for the Fallen suddenly turned over and watched the Evolve show, it didn't add or take away one solitary cent of what would have been going to the charity. So the tweet was not only misplaced, it was wrong. It was mathematically wrong.
Now, I said this last night. So at the end of Fyter Fest, after a brutal fucking non-sanctioned match, Kenny Omega came out and beat the shit out of Jon Moxley, as was expected.
Yep.
And I'm looking at Kenny at the end of the night, and then in my head, I'm rewinding back to the end of the tag team match. Because they booked Kenny at the end to just be savage and vicious. And the end of the tag team match, it showed me something that I've heard 100 times before. Kenny took time to shake everyone's hands, to take selfies, to thank the crowd personally. which a lot of people don't do. They might slap a few fives on their way out, but he's stopping to talk to people. He's purposely reaching into the audience to give like fist bumps and high fives. I have never heard anyone say something negative about Kenny Omega as a person. I've only heard that he is one of the nicest people in the entire business. That This is not a character, this is not a gimmick, this is who he is. This is that disgusting Canadian politeness. He's just a good guy. And when I saw that tweet, that didn't feel like Kenny Omega to me. That felt like some fucking Twitter podcaster. Like
it felt to me like he'd been given some information and he just reacted out of that anger or frustration, and he deleted it because he either found out that it was the wrong information or it wasn't in character for him and he regretted doing it.
And but that's the thing is, like I was saying, all of these guys are social media people, and they don't think before they tweet, and the internet doesn't forget. You cannot delete something. Look at the Lars Sullivan situation, which is funny because it came out, people forgot about it, and then it came out again, and people decided to be enraged again, because that's how it works. Nobody actually gives a shit about social justice. All they care about is, a way we can complain about a wrestler we don't like.
Exactly.
You know, like...
I mean, he is a dick, but...
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. So, I mean, like, I'm a firm supporter of social justice, but I'm also not the person who uses social media to talk about it. You know, I'm a very un-PC person with very PC mentalities, you know, and that's just who I am. If you listened last week, you know that I had to censor a couple assholes for saying things that I didn't want on the air. And it's so you a fan of George Carlin at all?
I can't say I'm a massive fan. I've seen some of his shows, but
so he said something in one of his sets many years ago that has resonated with me pretty much my entire life, and I'm going to slightly edit it because it involves some words that I won't say on the air. But he says, there is nothing inherently wrong with the word N. It's the racist asshole who's using it.
Okay.
Words can't hurt you. Words are irrelevant. It's the meaning and the intention behind those words. That's how I've always lived. So, like the infamous Vince McMahon, John Cena, Booker T incident, where Vince says it's all good, my N-word, and then Booker T looks around awkwardly. At the end of the day, that was really well done comedy, because it's completely absurd. Mm-hmm. Was it politically correct? Not even in a little bit. Should it have been on a major company's program? Probably not. Had that happened in a movie, people wouldn't have thought twice about it. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, because there was no malicious intention. Not saying that Vince McMahon isn't a racist old man, because I'm pretty sure he is. But it was done in a comedic fashion.
Yeah.
Now, when you have someone like Lars Sullivan, the only reason people are angry about James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, he got fired because he made some dark tweets back in the day about pedophilia. Mm-hmm. They were clearly done in jokes, and if you were familiar with James Gunn's career at the time, that was the kind of humor that his movies used. He didn't mean that he was a pedophile. He didn't mean that he supported pedophile. He was making a joke based on his style of dark humor from his films. And Disney was like, you're fired. All right, people forgot about this, so you're hired again. And that just shows you social media. People just forget about things. How many people are talking about Kenny's tweet today?
Nobody.
How many people are saying, how good was Kenny Omega last night?
Pretty much everybody.
It makes no sense.
Context is king. That's what it is.
So now it's, I want to do what I was going to do for the main event now, just in case, because we are going to run over, but I'm okay with that. So, God damn it, this is a thing. I am ready to die on this hill, and I'm going to start with that. And I want your honest opinion, Mr. Magnificent Mags. I want your unfettered real opinion, because I do want to have an intelligent discussion, but I will let you know 100% you cannot change my mind. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last night, I don't mean to shock anyone. So if you're not sitting down listening to this, it's not even 7 of you anymore. It's probably 4.5. I'm assuming Jackson's allowed to listen now. I mean, he's 5, so that's the right age to be listening to our show. Please make sure you're sitting. But last night, Cody Rhodes took a chair shot to the head. Mm-hmm. Now, you are going to have your chance, but allow me to say something real quick, because this is how I feel, and this is how I've always felt. And I know I'm actually really happy, Mags, that you are the person I have on for this discussion, because I know that you're the kind of person who respects other people's opinion, and even if you disagree with it, and that's one of the things I've always loved about chatting with you. Is he making weird fucking faces, Trash Can? Are you eating a sandwich? What the fuck are you doing? This is important. I'm trying to be nice to you for a change. So Cody took a chair shot to the head. Now, I'm going to start with, should he have protected himself? Yes, he should have put his hand up, because that's how you take a safe chair shot. At the end of the day, I always have believed that it should be performer's choice with the promotion's responsibility to make sure that their performers are healthy. Therefore, if a performer wants to take a chair shot, they can. A chair shot. I'm not talking Foley and Rock taking, 12, 19 unprotected chair shots. If a performer wants to take a chair shot, A, protect themselves, B, it's their choice, and C, yes, you do an impact test on them afterwards. You do a CTE test on them just to make sure. If they come back with a concussion, no more chair shots for that person. Period. And the reason I feel this way is everyone's like, oh, well, chair shots are bad. And it's funny because, that's just what people are saying today, because that's what everyone else is saying. Yes, concussions are a serious issue. But if we want to say it's because of concussions, here's the new and improved list of professional wrestling moves that will not have a chance of causing a concussion. Number 1, the bear hug. Number 2, collar and elbow tie-up. Number 3, pinfall. That's it. That's all you're allowed to do now, because everything else has a chance to give you a concussion. Ask Alexa Bliss, who seems to have 14 a week. I don't... People are only talking about it because the same people, big names, who said that they don't agree with it, are the same people who support independent organizations who allow fucking chair shots to the head. So it's only because it's AEW that it's a problem. Now, Max, I really do want your opinion, because we talked about this before, and I know that you're going to give me a good conversation about it.
I shall certainly try. I'm kind of in both camps, really. Obviously, I'm a child of the Attitude Era when chair shots, unprotected chair shots.
How old were you in the Attitude Era? 40?
Rude.
Sorry.
I was in my teens in the Attitude Era.
But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so basically, in that era, unprotected chair shots were a weekly occurrence. But over those the time between then and now, we've learned so much about how head trauma can really affect you. So I personally don't think he should have took the head shot. I would think if you're going to use chairs, absolutely fine, but at least put your hands up. But I'm also not in the camp of where it's the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of wrestling. It's not. It's not. We saw John Moxley spitting thumbtacks out at a camera.
We
We
saw
saw
Darby Allin torpedo himself into the ring post and out of the ring. I've never
well,
seen anything like that.
Andy did the coffin drop from the
Oh
top of
my
the
god,
rope.
that man's insane.
Yeah. So if you're going to be like critical of one thing that can give you a concussion, you've got to be critical of everything. Uh, Personally, I hope I've seen the Chris Van Vliet interview with Tony Khan after the event, and Tony Khan said that it's definitely not going to be a regular thing, and it's going to be very very sparingly that they'll be using the head chair shots. So
And
that's a
I
good
think
thing.
that's smart because I actually agree. You notice that nobody last night, because it's still up in the air whether Cody bladed or not, but there was no intentional blood for the most part. Like, I was surprised during the Moxley Janela match that nobody wore the Crimson Mask. Because if you use blood every night, because I don't know about you, but during the Attitude Era, I started to get bored with blood because people were bleeding in the opening contest. Like, there was just blood everywhere all the time. And it took matches like JBL and Eddie Guerrero to make you appreciate blood again because it was a bloodbath.
Yep.
You know, and like, I'm actually kind of happy that there wasn't, because there was blood in that match, obviously, with thumbtacks and barbed wire and shit like that. There was definitely blood, but it was so I've had this idea for an episode for 2 years. 2 years now about I just haven't done it because I just haven't had the opportunity with the person I want to do it with, about using blood in professional wrestling as a storytelling item. You know, like, blood tells a story. It really does. And I actually really like that AEW used a chair shot as a storytelling item, not as a, look, I'm gonna fucking hit him 12 times and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, because all of a sudden, all I wanted to see after that is fucking Shawn Spears versus Cody Rhodes. That's all because it was out of no. It was, he even did that thing where he turned around and looked at him like, "What are you doing here?" Like, he had that look of confusion, and it was just so well done. Now, I agree with you 100%. Cody should have protected himself, because I mean, I may support the chair shot, but I also really think that you need to make sure that you're safe, because a protected chair shot has a lot less impact than an unprotected chair shot. It's just the way it is. Excuse me. It's like, so I've seen a lot of people on Twitter. Now, this is where things get a little dicey. Bring up, you know who, Chris Benoit. Now, I'm just gonna say it. Yes, Chris Benoit took a lot of unprotected chair shots, but a lot of people did back then. Chris Benoit's concussion issues were not from chair shots; they were from the diving headbutt. That is a this is historical fact, that the majority of his concussions came from the way he performed the diving headbutt. He didn't put his arms up to, like, hit the opponent and protect his face. He hit them with his head, and he aimed for their head. Like, that was where his concussions were coming from. It was the same place that Eddie Guerrero's... I don't know if you know this. Eddie Guerrero had something like triple digits for broken wrists from doing the frog splash, because of the way he did it. He would land on his wrist, and he was constantly getting hairline fractures in his wrist. It's why you don't see a lot of people do the frog splash. It doesn't look dangerous, but it's really dangerous for the person who's doing it, for their arms, for their knees. It's a high impact spot. You know, I always liked how Rob Van Dam did it, because he would land on his forearms when he did the 5-star, you know, which is a lot wider of a space than putting your hands down. And that's why Rob Van Dam had a lot less injuries with it. But it was the diving headbutt that caused most of the traumatic brain damage that Chris Benoit had. And I'm sure chair shots didn't help, but I don't think anybody in the industry has taken more chair shots than Mick Foley. And he couldn't be farther from a psychopathic murderer. You know?
Well, I've read a book about Chris Benoit called The Ring of Hell. It's by a guy called Matthew Randazzo. I've mentioned it a couple of times, actually. And he basically went all the way through Chris Benoit's career. Obviously, he trained in the dojos in New Japan. And he took the headbutt from his hero, Dynamite Kid, who took it from Harley Race. And it has a quote in the book from Harley Race saying he wishes he never ever started doing the headbutt, because it was the single most dangerous move that wrestling ever had. And like I said, Benoit did that move for years unprotected, and the doctor's statements were that his brain was equivalent to an 80-year-old man with severe dementia. So yeah, chair shots don't help, but one chair shot does not equal 30 years of diving off headfirst from a 6-foot ring post.
So, and going back to, you know, the whole idea of it is, there was a major wrestling related website with a major wrestling commentator. Not a commentator like an on-screen commentator, like, you know, like we do, you know, they talk about wrestling. This is a blue checkmark kind of person, complaining about how dangerous it was. Now, this same person also praised how good Beyond Wrestling Uncharted Territory has been, which has had multiple chair shots to the head during its 13-episode run. Mm-hmm. So the issue I have is the only reason that this is a big deal is not because of the safety of Cody Rhodes. It's not because of the safety of performers. It's not because of what happened to Chris Benoit, what happens to football players and professional wrestlers. It's because it's a major company who people don't want to support, and even the people who do support it need something to complain about. Mm-hmm. That's the issue. If you are talking about this for the genuine concern of a performer, you have a conversation on your hands, not an argument. You have a conversation on your hands, because you need to. I'm a huge proponent, whether it's a chair shot, whether it's a table bump, whether it's a ladder bump, thumbtacks, barbed wire, fire, broken glass. It doesn't matter what it is. These professional wrestlers should have a choice in what they do. And like I said, the promotion has the responsibility to make sure that if they do choose to do something, that there's no lasting repercussions from it. Like you said, a single chair shot to Cody Rhodes is not going to be a huge detriment to his way of life. Now, the fact that immediately the commentators started talking about CTE testing and concussions and stuff like that, and then immediately the AEW Twitter posted a picture of him with the staples in his head saying he has passed concussion protocol. If you didn't figure out this was a fucking work, then you are not understanding of what professional wrestling is. Mm-hmm. You know, this is clearly storyline related, and I agree with that. Using a dangerous spot 2 days ago, days ago, people celebrated the anniversary of the most brutal match in WWE history between Mick Foley and The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell at King of the Ring 1998. We celebrated this as a historical moment. And a chair shot the next day is what's wrong with the industry. Like, Mick Foley could have literally died during that Hell in a Cell match.
Multiple times.
How can we celebrate that one day and then condemn Cody Rhodes the next day? And how are they Oh, you made a decision? Fuck you, because it's not the decision I agree with. How does that work?
This is the joys of social media and the fact that everybody can and does have a reaction. The thing when you gain so much quick popularity like AEW have, you're always going to have detractors, and them detractors are going to look for the minutest little thing that they can slate your company for, just like fans do with the WWE. And unfortunately, this was the one thing that the fans picked up on to go mad about. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. I don't think the chair shot was a good move, but I can also see why the use of the chair shot was a big statement in the show. And like you said, they knew that they were going to get a backlash over this, because the Cody and the Bucks and Kenny they're all social media savvy. They knew there was going to be some backlash over it, so they took the photos backstage of him with the stitches. They knew that they were going to get this backlash, and those fans have been worked, and they've been worked good and proper.
These are the same fans that think that EC3 is genuinely showing up on WWE television and throwing a tantrum every week.
It's the same fans that said that Bayley and Sasha were throwing a wobbler on the floor of a hotel room.
Yep. Because, that's how adult women in professional environments act, is they literally just lay down on the floor and kick and scream.
Exactly.
When I saw that story, especially because it was reported by, a major news outlet who had multiple sources reported that this happened. Multiple sources in 2019? You mean multiple sources who all had cell phones and nobody took a picture? Nobody took a video? And you're saying that this happened?
No. Bayley and Sasha took a video of themselves later in the event enjoying the show from the crowd.
Oh,
yeah, they were meant to be backstage kicking off and hollering and screaming.
You're telling me there's photographic evidence of them not even being where that this person said they were?
There you go.
Oh. This is a conundrum. We better get Dick Tracy on this shit. Who else we got? We got to find someone else. Inspector Trudeau and Sherlock Holmes. We need all of them. We gotta figure this out. Gabriel Knight. That's a little old school point and click reference for everyone out there. Sierra Interactive Entertainment. Great game. We've talked about this, you and I, recently on Discord. We've talked about this in private messages. We've talked about this in public on Twitter, how disenfranchised I have been personally with this Twitter community lately. You've got amazing people. Yourself, Matt, Graham, oh my God. Oh shit. I'm blanking. Amy over from Dragon's Den,
Mark, don't forget our boy Mark.
Of course, Mike and fucking,
Melissa.
Kelsey. Well, Melissa's constantly trying to start fights. You've got all these really positive people who like to have intelligent discussions about the things that they enjoy, and between all of the people I just mentioned, you've got hardcore AEW fans, you've got hardcore WWE fans, you've got hardcore indie fans, you've got hardcore New Japan, hardcore Ring of Honor, hardcore Impact fans. Like, you kind of hit every aspect. But for every great person who likes to have intelligent discussions, you have 100 other people who just want to start a fight. And like, I've been looking at Twitter lately, and I'm realizing how many people I just want to unfollow because they're just cancer.
Yeah.
And that's because this has always been here, but ever since AEW has been a thing, it's been really, really bad.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like a lot of people have been waiting for a competitor to rise up from the ashes just to have this opportunity to bitch and mourn about stuff. But if that's the case, why do people put themselves through stuff that they hate just to have a reason to mourn? Why? I've just never got that kind of mindset where I would sit through something that I don't necessarily enjoy just so I can whinge about it on Twitter to some people who I'm very unlikely to ever meet.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's self-punishing yourself just so you can have a moan about something.
And I agree with you. It's counterproductive. Mm-hmm. It really is. And I love complaining about things. And I've said it before on Twitter. I've said it before on this show. And I've got to break that character once again for one moment. What we're doing here is intelligent discussion surrounded by comedy and satire. 90% of my negativity is because it's fucking funny. It's not because like I'm trying to start a fight. It's because that's the kind of humor I have. I have self-deprecating humor. I love making fun of shit. I've loved WWE since as far as I can remember. I love ECW. I love WCW. I love deathmatch wrestling. I love technical wrestling. I just love wrestling. It's such a stupid sport, and it's so good. It's so entertaining because there's nothing else on the planet like, oh, you like wrestling, so you must like UFC too. No, UFC sucks. It's so boring. No,
we'll have less of that.
It's faker than wrestling. You know, where's the...
I don't know.
Where's the pageantry?
If you'd have watched last night's event, you would have said it's pretty much not fake. 4 guys got absolutely cleaned out on the main card.
1 chair shot to Cody Rhodes' head. How many concussions in a single UFC fight?
4 last night.
Like, come on. We are punching each other as hard as we can in the head repeatedly. Oh, that's cool. Because I don't see the people complaining about concussion protocol in the UFC. I don't see that. But 1 chair shot, oh God, it's the end of the world. Cody should have protected himself. He didn't. It's part of a storyline. Let's move on, people. Let's enjoy the fact that we have a new professional wrestling company that is accessible to millions of people. Mm-hmm. Who cares if they only put 5,000 people in a 9,000 seat arena? WWE put 5,000 in a fucking 16,000 seat arena. It happens. Get over it. Fuck off. And we have gone way over time. But now you need to promote all of your crap because, like, seriously, we're way over time and you need to do this.
Right. I have got 3 podcasts. I have got 2 on the Visionaries Wrestling Network. One is about UFC, which I won't hear a bad word said again, so fuck you, Ryan, for that. That's called the 5 Rounds Pod. I've also got Why We Watch, which is my baby, my child. I started with Matt Aaron before he ditched me like a hot shit. That is also on the Visionaries Wrestling Network. And I've got a relatively new one called Badlands Pod, where we talk about the Mount Rushmores of wrestling. That is on Brainbuster Radio. So give me a follow on Twitter at DAJ Kirby. I'm usually arguing with somebody, or at least trying to stir some shit up. That's my plug-in out of the way.
That's fantastic. I like how you didn't plug Paul at all. That's fuck fantastic. Paul. Yeah, fuck Paul.
Paul keeps trying to get Charlotte Flair on a Mount Rushmore so he can fuck off.
She was so much better in NXT, but that's neither here nor there.
To be fair, I actually put her on a Mount Rushmore the other day, and I've regretted it bitterly ever since.
Never do things. Just don't do anything. It's the only way to get away scot-free on Twitter, is just don't do anything. Just quietly sit back in the corner and every now and then post a GIF from some obscure television show that nobody understands, because that's the way it works. Or just tell everyone how upset you are about The Office leaving Netflix, because that's a personality trait. Liking The Office.
To be fair, though, I do love Paul, and without him, Badlands wouldn't be a thing. I've told him that many, many times. He puts up with my nonsense, so he's a good guy. I love Paul.
I need to get in touch with them about doing some Five Nerds so I can talk about wrestling and video games at the same time.
You definitely should.
I definitely should. I you know what? I think I should just start being on everyone's podcast. Anyone running a podcast about like Hot Pockets? I could talk about Hot Pockets for a while.
You say that, but I have offered you on multiple occasions to come on Why We Watch, and you said I do not give the full Why We Watch experience, and that hurt me to my very core.
To be fair,
so don't book this dickhead on your podcast. He's an asshole.
I can see this needs to go through editing. Don't forget that. I have told you, and this is an open invite to any podcast related to professional wrestling. I have been looking to guest spot on a podcast that will allow me to quote Paul Heyman, shoot from the hip as long as I need to get all of this shit off of my chest as me, not as the host of this show, not as a guest on another show. I need to let it all out. Now, if you can give me a Why We Watch that lets me say whatever I need to for as long as I need to, then I will be there in a heartbeat. But I do want to do it just in general, but I need to get some things off my chest. But ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Blade Job. He has been the Why We Watch, because I don't know how to close out shows. Usually Scott just goes, "Good night, everybody." So that's how we're going to close it. Good night. Mag, say good night.
Bye.
Awesome! Every Wednesday on the Wrestling Perspective Network, RJ and Michael Berry Sr. come to play on the Revisionist Booking. They rebook a wrestling pay-per-view from the past and try to make their cards awesome. Follow them on Twitter at Revisionist Book, at Michael Berry Sr., and go over to iTunes, Stitcher, and blogtalkradio.com/Wrestling Perspective Network and subscribe. Head over to whatforapparel.com/Revisionist Book and check out their great apparel as well. And as always, you're welcome, and let the Revisionist Revolution begin. Think that you can know me, don't try and play that.